Let Neptune strike ye dead, Winslow! Hark! Hark! Triton! Hark!
What's up, everybody? Welcome to a new series of late reviews where I'm just gonna review things that have come out already. Maybe a long time ago, maybe not so long ago, maybe recently, but probably always late. Alright, so we're gonna talk about The Lighthouse. First and foremost, go watch The Lighthouse. If you haven't seen it, don't let me spoil it for you. This movie is effing brilliant. Alright, now that that's out of the way, let's get a little, just a little backstory, a little info on it. The Lighthouse is a 2019 psychological horror film directed and produced by Robert Eggers. He co-wrote the screenplay with his brother Max Eggers. The movie was shot in black and white with a 1:19:1 aspect ratio. The film stars Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson as two wickies, or lighthouse keepers, who start to lose their sanity. Okay, so right off the bat, what's going to grab you here is the look, the sound, the environment. The second this film starts, it makes you feel like you're there, like you're cold, you're dirty, the wind's blowing. These guys get off the boat, they look miserable. They know that they're in for a long and miserable stay. The principle of this film is, it's based in the 1800s, around 1890, I guess. It is loosely based on a true event of two men who were stranded on a lighthouse island, and we'll get into spoilers here in a minute. Anyway, the sound. Okay, so the look of it. It's not just black and white. It's accentuated in spots with light and brightness, but it's also darker than it needs to be in other places. It makes your eyes look where it wants you to look. Being a 1:19:1 aspect ratio, basically a small square on your television, you don't get the full spectrum of your widescreen TV like you're used to in large cinema. These two actors have to work in a smaller closed quarter area than normal, which makes it feel more personal. You can't see a lot of what's going on around them. You have to focus on these two men and their interactions with each other. The sound of it, when they get off the boat and you hear the lighthouse, the whoa, it's like one of the worst sounds ever, and the wind's blowing and you hear the waves crashing and the rain, and it just, like I said, it makes you, everything about this movie is submersive. It brings you into the environment. It automatically gives you this feeling of existential dread, like, man, something bad's gonna happen here. These dudes, they're grizzled looking. It's just all around amazing. It was filmed in Nova Scotia, which is awesome because I watched a lot of interviews with Robert Pattinson and Willem Dafoe saying that everything was done on location. So it was freezing cold, it was raining, their clothes that they were wearing were made like period accurate. So like, yeah, they were warm clothes, but they were drenched in wet and cold, and it helped them get into their roles even better. I love when directors do that. Robert Eggers, we'll get to him. Okay, so anyway, moving on from the look and the feel of it, it's amazing looking. The director, Robert Eggers, he's known for The Witch, which came out, when did The Witch come out? Maybe 2017, 2018. I haven't watched it yet. Because I've watched The Lighthouse now, and it's so brilliant, I'm going to have to go back and watch The Witch. I put it off because I wasn't sure I wanted, because of the story. I wasn't sure I wanted to watch it because I didn't think I would like the story. Which brings me to a nice point about The Lighthouse. There was points in this movie where I was like uncomfortable and disgusted, and I wasn't sure I liked what I was feeling. But when the movie finished, I realized that, the more I thought about it, I realized that it made me feel exactly the way the director set out to make you feel. And that's what a fantastic film should do, regardless of you liking the plot of it or liking the story of it. You should still feel submersed in the movie. You should still feel like you're in the shoes of the person. And that's what this movie did. So I'm really curious to whether I'll like The Witch now, even if I don't like the storyline. So, yeah, he's most known for The Witch. He co-wrote this with his brother, Max Eggers. His brother actually was trying to make a movie, a ghost story in a lighthouse, he said. And Robert Eggers thought there's some potential there and waited for his brother to pan out with this movie, and then he approached him and said, how's the movie coming? And Max Eggers said, it's not going very well. So he said, hey, how about we co-write and come up with this new storyline, and we'll do it together. So they came up with this, The Lighthouse. The performance and the actors. Willem Dafoe and Robert Pattinson destroy this movie. I get goosebumps thinking about their acting and their portraying of these two already broken-minded men being stranded on this island for a month. When you meet them, you instantly get this. The first night you see, Willem Dafoe's character is kind of like the old, grizzled, knowledgeable man who's already, he knows how everything works. Robert Pattinson being a first-timer, he's younger, he kind of gets pushed around, he gets told what to do, he has to do all the crap work and all this stuff, and you start seeing him breaking slowly by little, and Willem Dafoe's character just keeps pushing him towards the edge. These men deserve awards for this movie. Out of all these movies that came out this year, no one even touched close to what these guys did in this movie. You have to watch it. Obviously, I put the clip at the beginning of the movie where Willem Dafoe's Hark speech, it just, even if you don't know it and it's out of context, holy cow, you can't say that this dude didn't just like put his all into this movie. And just being all practical about it. There's a moment in the movie where Willem Dafoe's actually being buried alive, and they're throwing dirt on top of him and pouring dirt in his mouth and on his face, and all that stuff he actually did. I couldn't do that. There's no way in heck that I would be able to do that kind of stuff, and it's that stuff that shows through. What caught my eye about this movie before it ever even came out was that, I'm a huge fan of Willem Dafoe, but Robert Pattinson, I haven't really ever seen him in anything, and he is going to be our new Batman coming up in a couple years. So I was really curious to see him in a role, a serious role, and see how he was. If he's a good actor, if I liked him, and he did not disappoint. He stood right up there with Willem Dafoe and put his all into it. And the clashing of the two characters, hating each other during the day when they're sober and doing work, and then at night they get wasted and they're like sailors partying and they're getting way too close and way too jolly and dancing, and it's just this crazy dynamic back and forth. This movie is 100% a descent into madness, and it takes you right along with it. You feel the beats as they go through this movie in your own head. By the time you're halfway through this movie, you're questioning your own sanity and what you're watching because of how well written it is and how well acted it is. As the movie progresses, obviously, they introduce some more mythic set pieces, a lot of sea folklore is heavy in this movie. Robert Pattinson's character finds a porcelain mermaid in the bed that he's sleeping in from the previous Wiki who had died. And he starts becoming obsessed with this mermaid thing. And you start finding out that these dudes are like extremely sexually repressed, and they're sexually frustrated, and there's a lot of jacking off in this movie. Like I said, there's a lot of uncomfortable parts in this movie. But he starts getting obsessed with these mermaids stuff, and there's, you got sirens, which are mermaids who call to sailors, and they sing to them in the ocean, and they lead sailors into the ocean, and they drown. And you see parts of that and elements of that in here. You see mermaids in here, and most of the time you can't tell if Robert Pattinson's character is just completely bonkers, mad, or if he's actually seeing these things. They introduce these seagulls who won't leave Robert Pattinson alone, and Willem Dafoe tells him that seagulls are basically the lost souls of sailors. You don't mess with them. So there's a lot of like setup to the fall of, the break of Robert Pattinson's mind. The clip that I did put at the beginning, I believe, after I've thought about this movie for a few weeks now, I believe it is the point where Robert Pattinson breaks, but also Willem Dafoe's character curses Robert Pattinson's character. The whole speech that he's saying pans out the rest of the movie. It's hard to understand Willem Dafoe at points, but if you actually like pay attention to what he's saying, and when you watch the movie, what happens to Robert Pattinson at the end is very confusing. But if you actually listen to what Willem Dafoe is saying in that screaming rant that he does, it happens word for word almost to Robert Pattinson. There's like an obsession with the light in the lighthouse. Willem Dafoe won't let Robert Pattinson in the light, so he becomes obsessed with the light too. He wants to see it. There's clashing. I don't want to spoil the end for you completely, so go watch it. I do want to talk about Robert Pattinson at the end, laying on the beach, being eaten by the seagulls, is exactly, like I said, it's exactly what Willem Dafoe had said in his curse, basically, is that you will be nothing but flesh and bone and swallowed by the sea. And that's exactly what happened to him. And it's just really cool foreshadowing that it's such a huge key piece, but it's so easy to overlook. And it took me a while to figure out even what happened at the end of the movie. And once I figured that out, I was like, man, this movie is even more well written and brilliant than I thought it was. So yeah, this is it's definitely not for everyone. Even if you don't necessarily like what's happening in the movie and like the way it makes you feel in the storyline, you can still appreciate the look of it, the sound, the effort that went into it. It's beautifully done. And I mean, what Robert Eggers wanted you to feel and get out of it is 100% what you do get out of it. It's not necessarily what you want to feel or get out of a movie, but that's not necessarily a bad thing. Art is subjective, and that's 100% what this is. I'm so excited and curious to see where Robert Eggers goes next and what he's going to do next. It seems like The Witch was that the A24 studio kind of keeping a little bit of a grip on Robert Eggers and letting him do what he wants to do, but because it did so well and it was so good, they kind of let him just have free reign on this Lighthouse movie. And unfortunately, no one's talking about it because Star Wars. But anyway, people should be talking about it, and I feel like because it is amazing, and it did decently. It was a $4 million budget, I believe, and it made 11.5. That's not bad, especially for a lower budget movie, especially coming out now. But I hope that they let him move on and keep doing things that he wants to do, and they just let him do it. They don't. Big studios keeping death grips on creators is what's destroying things that we love And it's nice to see this glimmer of someone really truly caring about the movie that they're making. Not saying that anybody making a huge blockbuster movie doesn't care, but I feel like when you get into that bigger spectrum with the bigger dollar signs and expectations of making even bigger dollar signs, it's where you lose sight of what the movie is really truly about. And this movie wasn't worried about that kind of stuff, so it ended up being what it is, and what it is a brilliant film. All right, guys, thanks for listening. I hope you go check out The Lighthouse. Leave a comment, tell me what you think of the movie, tell me what you think about this video. If you hated it, tell me you hated it. Give it a like, thumbs up, thumbs down. Subscribe to the Suicide Moses Pro channel if you can. Hit the notification bell. Head over to Facebook, give me a like on there. Instagram, I put all my artwork up there. You can order some prints or some custom drawings if you want. Head over to Bandcamp to listen to some original music, some bands that I've recorded. And have a good night. See you guys later.